Oh, this could be an opening. The man who wants to have the opening. It's Lauren Sheffield. That is the moment. The moment of matters.
Hello everyone, welcome to the first ever episode of Hearts on Sleeves podcast, a podcast where we'll follow Heart of Midlothian, their fans, and the ups and downs that come with it, both on and off the field. Join with me today are Adam and Trunter. We'd normally have John, who is Adam's brother, but he's working late today, so isn't able to join us, but he'll be here next time. So, as we enter the new season, we're doing the League Cup group round stages, ones which I don't think many of us were hoping to be able to be doing at this stage, but here we are. We're 2 games in, 2 wins in, and we're going to look at them shortly. But there is, despite the fact we're having to do League Cup group stage matches, there is a slight sense of optimism. So this is why I'm choosing not to reflect on last season, because I want to keep that feeling of optimism going. I'm feeling excited about the season ahead. How are you feeling about it, Trunter?
I'm always optimistic, mate. I'm always optimistic. A funny thing is when we signed again with Hummel for our kits, that just gave me a really good rush. Back in the day when me and used to go to the games when we first started hanging out. Obviously that was the craziest time for Hearts. That was the Romanov era. And I don't know, there's something about those chevrons on the sleeves and, well, chevrons in general that just, yeah, I'm optimistic about it, man. I think McGuinness is good. I'm quite chuffed with some of the signings. And we were all talking about when we were planning the podcast, none of us thought that Shanks was going to re-sign. It seemed like it was never going to happen. And then it actually happened, and I don't know, didn't know how to feel about it. It was just, wow, this is actually happening. And that's just properly got me in a good mood about the whole thing. Yeah. Chuffed, mate.
And I mean, also have to say, big fan of the new kits. I was saying this to yourself, Adam. You can tell me how you're feeling about the season ahead, but I wasn't a fan of the home kit until I saw it on the pitch, and actually, I have to say, I'm quite sold on that as well. You bought yourself the tracksuit, which I really like. I'm not sure if you're happy with the way it fits around your neck, but it looks very nice on you. I got the third choice, sort of the black and gold kit, which I just think's my favourite of recent times, other than that sort of anniversary kit. Really liking all the Hummel stuff, and again, that's kind of made me even more excited. How are you feeling about the season, Adam?
Definitely feeling optimistic. I think you have to feel optimistic at the start of the season, otherwise there's not much point in watching Hearts. I think I'm feeling something a little bit different from normal, where I'm feeling kind of long-term optimism. So I'm kind of seeing this season as a bit of a transition with us using the analytics, bringing in McInnes. So I'm kind of trying to, I think if we're gonna have setbacks this season, we're not gonna win every match, and I think I'm trying to kind of stay focused on the fact that I think we're moving towards a really exciting time, and this is just the beginning with highs and lows. So yeah, definitely optimistic. Like Trunter said, with Shankland signing a contract again, with McInnes coming in, lots of new signings. It's quite an exciting time, I think, to follow the club. In terms of the shirts, yeah, once I saw the home kit up, once I actually bought it, I realised it was a lot better than I thought. I'm a big fan of the black kit. And I even bought the training top. I never buy stuff beyond the home kit and that, but I think there's a lot of really great Hummel stuff. And yeah, brings back memories of 2005, 2006, that kind of era as well. So I think there's lots to be excited about over the next few years, I reckon, for Hearts.
So game day 1 of the new season was against Dunfermline, and just that feeling of coming back to Tynecastle is ridiculous, because I wasn't there that long ago, but still it really feels, it brings you. I was trying to explain the feeling to Michelle, my wife, and it's that feeling of comfort that I can only describe as when you've been on holiday and you come back to your own bed, that feeling of it. And yeah, I was feeling excited on the way in. Game day for me starts the moment I wake up, and I'll start messaging folk on the group chat and just my thoughts for the game ahead. But also, as I say, it's all kind of the game day is part of that journey there. For me, it's a train. For you, Adam, and for you, Trunter, when you're able to get in, it's a train as well. For you, Adam, it's a bus. And just getting off and walking through past Haymarket, through Dalry, just those familiar, like, for example, there's, when I walk past, there's this hot pot place I walk past, and it's just such a distinct smell from it. It just makes me feel that excitement that I'm ready for game day. And also it's just such a great feeling, even though it's only been a couple of months. I've been away from Tynecastle, just experiencing all of that again, and of course going past the Gorgie fish bar and trying to resist, getting myself a poke of chips pre-game. When I headed in, had a look at the team sheet, and we started with a 4-4-2, and we lined up with Clark in goals. That wasn't too much of a surprise. Gordon's still injured, looking potentially unlikely to make his game against Sunderland, which would be a shame. I think McInnes has mentioned he's hoping to get at least some minutes in it, so that'd be great to see him there. In centre of defence, we lined up with Kent and Halkett, and then either side of them was Milne, and slightly surprisingly to me was McEntee, somebody we brought in as a sort of central midfielder role. However, he was picked ahead of Borch Grevenink. We're going to call him Borch, aren't we? Now, I'm jumping ahead slightly here. Derek McInnes said that was due to physicality issue, which I don't know. I'd like to think that Borch Grevenink is perfectly capable of handling the Scottish game against a championship team. I don't know. It was a slight sort of playing someone out of position, and obviously Forrester clearly not favoured at all, and I think it's definitely going to be on his way out, at least on loan. Then in middle of midfield, Devlin and Benny, familiar, and then either side, not quite as familiar, Forrest, and definitely not familiar, we had Braga. Up front was Shanks, our very own captain, which kind of puts to bed any questions over his captaincy, and Wilson up front partnering. What were your thoughts when you saw that, Adam?
Yeah, I think similar to you, Jamie, in terms of McEntee being at right back. I think was the big shock. I think maybe we expected to see another new signing play. I think that was the other maybe that was the other surprise. We only had McEntee and Braga starting. I think other than that, I don't think there was too many shocks really in the lineup, and I was reasonably happy with going into the match with that lineup. I also thought that I wasn't expecting Devlin and Benny to play together, just based on what I'd read and what based on them being how they play together in midfield.
When Adam and myself saw McInnes do the 90 minutes with presentation, he said he really wanted Hearts to become a team that would start off fast, and we actually we almost did take the lead after a minute. The ball fell kindly to Forrest with a burst of pace. He played it sort of along the ground to Shankland. At the time, I was sitting in the middle of a main stand. I thought Shankland should have scored this. But, I watched it back. It bobbled slightly, and it fell ever so slightly behind him. Maybe Shankland later on the season would have put it away, but actually I thought it wasn't the gilt-edged opportunity I thought it was. Either way, it didn't matter, because he made amends just 2 minutes later. It was a great curling shot, and it fell nicely to Wilson, who actually is a really tidy finish, to put it 1-0. And one of the great things about this game for me was there was absolutely no VAR. It's funny to think that's maybe an experience the upcoming generation will never know, but it was quite a nice feeling, Trunter, to not have any VAR in a Hearts game again.
Yeah, man, with VAR, I think sometimes the absence of it reminds you how great it was not having it. Just that the sheer feeling of joy when a striker thinks they've scored a goal that feeds right into the crowd. If the lineman's not got his flag up, that's a goal. Like, that's unbeatable. And to see the pause that now happens, it's such like it's a mood killer that takes away just that pure. That's what we all want. That's what we're all waiting for in a game of football. And to have to kind of stop for a moment, it's kind of being like told to stop feeling good. It's really odd. So yeah, I think sometimes not having the VAR, it can be just, yeah, I can imagine it's quite liberating.
Absolutely agreed. And again, twice there was 2 penalty shouts, and of course both of those would have gone to VAR. Both times the flag didn't go up. Both times are called straight away, and you're actually legitimately able to celebrate that. And as you say, it's just pure joy being able to feel that again. It was great. After that, after the goal went in to make it 1-0, though, we maintained that pressure, and we were really quite direct. I felt we got quite a good glimpse, Adam, of what we can expect from a McInnes team. Forrest in particular. Now, I know he's quite a divisive player, but he really sort of exemplifies kind of the type of play that McInnes might want. A speedy winger who's able to just cut inside, cross a ball, and he's causing Dunfermline quite a lot of problems throughout the game. Did that feel like a sort of glimpse into the future, perhaps not with Forrest, but with other wingers coming into the team?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the areas we're definitely looking to strengthen is, bringing in pacey wingers. And I think Forrest has really good moments. Sometimes just doesn't have the end product. So I think that's probably a sign of the kind of football we might get, and hopefully get in a couple of players who can do a little bit better than Forrest as well. So yeah, it was quite exciting. He certainly had a lot of the ball, and it was quite a few good moves during the match.
He was definitely a frustrating figure, and I think we said this ourselves, Adam, during the game. There were just a couple of moments, either making wrong decision or getting the ball caught underneath his feet. But by and large, I just felt like that was the kind of play that we can expect to see from our Hearts team going forward. And another player that I feel really kind of exemplified what we might see was McEntee. Now, as I said, he wasn't in the position we're going to see him in. I'm quite certain he'll rarely play this position of right back. But straight away, he's probably the first signing through the analytics. I thought he is going to adjust the game, no bother in Scotland. Even Cabango, I know he's putting him away straight away. You just don't know 100% about strikers. McEntee, Dunfermline players, now they're all quite big lumps, those guys, and he was able to shrug them off, no bother. He kind of faded away in the second half, but that's kind of, we'll come on to that and know why that happened. But he also had quite a good ball in him. Now, he was crossing for a few of these, which again, he maybe won't do so much, but he showed a lot of promise. Another thing that I picked up on that was quite interesting was that Kent moved up from his central defensive role, and you could see him, coming right up to sort of the opposition's box at times, not just for set plays as well. So these are all sort of things I'm quite excited to see under McInnes. Then, so the games changed. The complexion of the game changed in the 37th minute. Halkett kind of had the ball to Benny, who under pressure wasn't able to stop the ball falling for Cooper, who manages to get his shot away, puts it past Clark. Now, this was their first and only shot. We were well on top. They get a breakaway. I guess you're slightly concerned though, because this is a Hearts team that have shown that can happen to them quite a few times over the last couple of years. As far as the goal itself, Trunter, do you think either Benny or Clark could have done better there?
I think both could have, but at the end of the day, it's just these things do happen, and it was an absolute belter of a shot. I mean, like you've said, that they didn't have many opportunities, and for that one to go in, I almost don't begrudge them it. It was just, yeah, Cooper did really well, but I don't think the guys lost the plot. I don't know. It was unnerving, and again, I'm always watching kind of bits of it as I can get it. it Usually, I feel that the Hearts players, we concede like a fluky goal, we're gonna kind of crumble underneath that, and that never seemed to be the case. Everyone seemed to be kind of, we'll just get back at it and score another three. So, and that's how it turned out to be.
Yeah, and I think Dunfermline, I think it's fair to say now, I know I saw a lot of people on social media complaining about the performance of that despite winning 4-1. And I have to say, though, Dunfermline, whilst they definitely probably had the better share of it after that goal up until maybe, I don't know, maybe 75th minute, they didn't really create much from that. They maybe had a couple of corners, but no real shots on target. That goal was their only shot on target. And I don't think that is down necessarily to a poor Hearts performance. I actually think Dunfermline were pretty solid. They made themselves really compact, which kind of left us not able to go through the middle, and we were left crossing the ball. And again, like you say, they got pretty big players. So yeah, I think actually fair play to Dunfermline. They did do pretty well. They did have the better of it, but we came into it slightly. Around the 72nd minute, Milne, who came on and I thought was excellent. Actually, throughout the game, he gave me slight, I think it's the blonde hair, but also the style of play, reminded me a bit of Cochrane when we had him. Yeah, so Cochrane Mark II. I've gone and jinxed it already. But yeah, I thought he had a great game. And in the 72nd minute, he crossed in for Shankland. He managed to get a shot away, went over the top, but at last we started seeing some positive attack and play from us. And I think this really stemmed from the substitutions that we made. Now, we finally did get the goal. A penalty from Forrest running forward, tripped up, and straight away it was given. And, if there was VR, it may well have gone, because it did look, he went down quite easily, but at the same time, the goalkeeper shouldn't have been coming for that. It was well ahead of him. He would have, I think the defenders could have come back for it. However, we managed to get a penalty. How did you feel, Adam, when you saw Shankland step up to take it? Flashbacks to Bruges?
I never in doubt, yeah. Absolutely 100% was going to score. No, in reality, I was a bit nervous because Shankland's just signed a new contract. It's a really great chance for everyone to get behind him and for him to have a great season. I think it's a really good sign that Shankland got up and took it, because he didn't take every penalty last season, and it had been a while, I think, since he's actually scored a penalty. So I was more nervous from the point of view of, I think it was really important for him to get off the mark. Yeah, he scored 2 goals in one game, and it took him 22 games last season to score 2 goals. So I was nervous just because I wanted him to get off the mark and have a great start. But the actual penalty itself, I thought it was excellent. And then jumping ahead a bit, but for him to just get up and do almost the same penalty again, I think it's a real sign of his confidence and a promising sign for how he's going to get on in the next few games.
I remember you saying that after the game, Adam, that taking 22 games to get to 2 goals, that's an absolutely crazy statistic. Another crazy statistic was throughout the whole of last season, we got 2 penalties, which, by the way, missed both. And within our first game, we've managed to get 2. I don't know if that's something to do with VAR, but we're going to leave that conversation for another day. There was one more final goal, an absolute screamer from Kingsley. It's funny because I remember Adam saying to yourself beforehand, oh no, actually, the thing is, John, I said to him when Kingsley came on, I said, oh, this will be him away, this will be getting his final hurrah. And he comes on and scores an absolute belter and is put him right back into consideration. I don't know where his career will lie, if it is with us. At the moment, we've not got too many options at left back, but man, he just really rolled back the years there and shows what he's still perfectly capable of. I think this would be a good point to move on to the second game. So the one after that was against Hamilton, and this was at Broadwood, over in Cumbernauld. Adam and myself took the trip there. We had a look at the map and thought, right, 20 minutes from the station, this will be absolutely no bother to get to. I would say this, if you're ever going to Broadwood, prepare to do a lot of exploration to get to their stadium. Went through all these different back roads, all these random little paths that kind of gave us feelings that we might be victims of a good solid paggering football factory style from the Hamilton Ackie fans. But we made it there in one piece, and beforehand we went to Broadwood Farm. Highly recommend, great pub.
How long did it take to get there?
So I would say a 20-minute walk took us about 40 to 50 minutes. Would that be fair, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, Google Maps was basically leading us along a pretty huge road that had no pavement. So it certainly we took a bit of a detour. I mean, there was a couple other fans that we saw, and about 3 times we went a different route and still ended up back behind them again as we made our way back on the right way. And I think they were going to the same place as us, but we went a different way a number of times along the route. They seemed to know exactly where they were going, in fairness. So I think maybe it's more of a reflection on us than it was on Cumbernauld.
Definitely. I mean, we ended up driving down to Wigan to see Wigan Man City about 15, 20 years ago. Jamie, we ended up in a field, so it could have been worse, mate.
Yeah.
So maybe Jamie's the one that
The one constant throughout this, yeah. I also think that it shows the difference in our personalities a wee bit here, Adam. You were like, I don't think there's much of a pavement here. This is all just road. And it's this busy main road, with cars whizzing past. I'm like, I'll be fine. There's a wee bit of grassy verge there. We should be okay on. But I'd say we made it there in one piece. Maybe not mentally, but physically we ended up there in one piece. As we're sitting in Broadwood Farm, we got through that it would be a 3-5-2, which is a change up from a 4-4-2. Raised a bit of eyebrows with us, but McInnes said afterwards part of the reason of this was kind of due to injuries and people not being 100% and maybe not want to start, but also due to the way Hamilton typically set themselves up. As it transpires, they set themselves up different to what he was expecting. But it was quite nice to see the fact that we're able to set up in different formations from one game to the next. I don't think this is something we're going to do, but I was perfectly happy for him to do that and have the confidence to do that. I do think, there was issues with Naismith doing it kind of from game to game a season or two ago. But this felt a bit different. It's kind of due to the fact that along with 7 changes that were made to the squad, he's using these games, yes, to try and get through in the League Cup, but also to kind of experiment slightly with it. What was your thoughts about the team? I'll read it out to you, Adam. So back 3, we had Finlay making his debut. Kent was handed the armband, and Steinvender there as well on the right. Then Alan Forrest again playing. This time Devlin was dropped for Neuenhoff, who I thought came on did really well against Dunfermline. And he was alongside Benny, and then over on the right hand side we had Borch. Then playing slightly ahead was Blair Spittle. We were both happy to see that. I was kind of used to Blair Spittle playing off to the side, but he was really doing a sort of classic central role, and then up in front of him was Wilson and Kabangu. So Adam, your thoughts on that lineup and the changes that were made?
Well, initially I was, pretty shocked to see so many changes, but I also think, this is the League Cup group stages. It's a chance to give other players a chance. So I think it was quite exciting to go into the game knowing there was a new formation and a whole new set of players. I was really happy to see Neuenhoff come back into the team. I know John, who's obviously not here tonight, I know John's a big fan of Neuenhoff, and really happy that he came in and started. I was a little bit worried in the summer maybe that he wasn't going to have much of a future, so that was encouraging. Also really happy to see Finlay start for the first time and Borch Grivink come in as well and start. So yeah, I was quite excited just to get a chance to see different players. I think Shankland obviously missing out was the biggest blow perhaps, but good to see Kabanga and Wilson together as well.
Yeah, that was an interesting one, wasn't it? Not starting Shankland, and as it came about, he didn't have any minutes at all, but we still managed to score four goals without him. And the first of those came with Finlay scoring from a corner. By the time we got into the stadium, it was already 1-0, Adam. But we
Well,
didn't see the goal, but we heard the celebrations just as we're coming in.
we went to the shorter queue on the. Well, this was another story of how long did it take us? Did we get lost on the? Oh yeah, we almost got lost. We did get lost on the way to the match as well from the pub. So there's a bit of a recurring theme here. We went the wrong way from the pub. Someone gave us directions. Even with the directions, we still struggled quite a bit. Then we bumped into a group of Hearts fans who'd gone the wrong way and they were on their way back. So we eventually made it. And then there was drama trying to get the tickets. So we did hear, yeah, we heard the goal, missed it by about 30 seconds. But I've since obviously seen it in the highlights, and I think it was a really good goal. Really great to see Finlay off the mark so quickly.
He looks big, doesn't he? I don't think he's as big as he looks. He's like a big gazelle. He's the way he runs, man. The way he goes through the air. I mean, obviously I've only seen the highlights, but he just looks a big lad. Like he's got a good presence.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you're seeing guys like McEntee, Finlay come in who are like 6 foot plus, I think that's also a sign of what McInnes had said at the Q&A and what McInnes has said in general about trying to bring a bit more physicality in. So, but on top of that, I think he just looks like he could be a really solid addition as well.
I just don't think too many teams are going to look forward to trying to cross a ball in with both him and Kent. And I think both Finlay and Kent had a particularly good game. Every time the ball came in, they'd get their head to it. Yeah, Finlay stood out in particular, although I have to say Kent really looked back to his best. He was someone that I wouldn't say I wasn't fussed about the idea of him not staying this season, but if you're looking at ones that could go, my opinion that has changed. I thought he looked really, really solid. And, again, sort of pointing back to the fact that he has the captain's armband. Obviously, we know that Shankland is going to be captain when he's playing, but I don't think he'll be handed that captain's armband unless there was an intention for him to stay there and put it on when Shankland's not available. So we'll see how that one plays out. The rest of the first half, I think quite early on, I said to you, Adam, this is not a team we should be conceding to. Dunfermline, even though they didn't offer much, they still looked like a pretty solid outfit. Hamilton, they just didn't really offer much. And the fact it stayed 1-0 for so long was a slight concern. We were making opportunities, and I think Kabangu was a bit of a frustrating. Forrest was a frustrating figure in the first one. It was Kabangu. In this one, there was just occasions, one in particular, where he just needed to get the shot off and just took one too many touches. However, I say all that, it was him who managed to get the goal. It was crossed in by Borch, and he managed to get on the end of it, and it went 2-0 just before half-time. A great time to get it. What were your feelings, Adam, going into the second half? Were you hoping to see some new players, or how did you just feel that the first half went for Hearts?
Well, I think we should mention that Jamie also missed the second goal. So after us getting lost a couple of times, we got to half time and Jamie had seen no goals. So it was at this point we weren't. I don't know if Jamie was sure it was worthwhile coming through.
Did he go back to the pub or something?
Oh no! If he'd gone back to the pub, he would have been getting home the next day by the time we managed to find it. So, nah, Jamie went for he went for a drink or something. So, I should say he went for a Coke, not for a pint in the pub. But no, I think kind of echoing what you're saying. I mean, so Hamilton and Dunfermline, they both only had one shot, but there was a huge difference. Dunfermline felt like quite a solid team. Hamilton really never looked up to much. So I was always pretty confident. I was always really confident in the Hamilton match that we were going to win. And yeah, I think it was there was some really good performances in the first half. I think what you're saying about Kabangu's a bit of a frustrating player. I think he's capable of doing really great stuff. I think it's too early. Like some people are kind of writing him off, I feel like already. But he's definitely got ability. He's just I think what's strange with Kabangu is he's 27 and he kind of plays more like he's a youngster, a bit inexperienced. So, but he has ability. He just gets a bit clumsy and makes some bad make decisions. But I still think there's a player in there and he's capable of scoring. I think he's capable of getting 10, 15 goals in a season if he does all right. So, overall though, I was happy with the half and I think the match. I don't think the result was ever in doubt this time. Whereas against Dunfermline, there was a bit more doubt for a bit longer.
Was it against Celtic last year that Cabangu scored that absolute screamer? It was, wasn't it? It
Yeah, I
was
mean,
3-1, I think.
Kabangu had that. He had a lot of goals when he first started, and he's definitely got ability, and he's definitely got a capability of scoring quite a few goals. I think. I
I
think.
think so. If he sinks his teeth into Scottish football, I think there's a player there.
Yeah, and I think some of the way he plays and the style he plays, sometimes it can produce great moments. Sometimes he's going to make mistakes, sometimes he's going to lose the ball, but I think he's kind of a bit erratic, but capable of good moments as well, I think.
So whilst we certainly were beating them off on the pitch, I think Hamilton had their number off the pitch because the halftime bangers they were dropping, Ali Hills Bells McCoist would have been in his element. They were playing some metal classics and both teams came out to Enter Sandman by Metallica. And to be honest, that kind of was the highlight for most of the second half. It wasn't really until, as you said, Adam, they weren't troubling us. But we really needed those substitutions that came on that injected energy into the game. And Hamilton just looked pretty down and out by this point, and Braga in particular took full advantage of this. Now, before I talk about his goal involvement and the goal he scored itself, did you see that run he made where he sort of has one tap and then kind of heads it to himself? Do you see that one?
Yeah, I thought that was excellent, and he brought just a huge amount of energy when he came on. Really felt like a kind of fan's favorite potential kind of material. Reminded me a bit of some of the wingers of the past, kind of flair player kind of guys that we've had in the past. And I also really liked his kind of enthusiasm. When he set up a goal and scored a goal, he just came running over to the fans, absolutely like ecstatic. And I think even when you see him in interviews, he's got that enthusiasm as well. So I think he's got real potential to be one of these kind of cult hero type guys.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to become a fan favourite. And also, what I thought when he came on, he just seems to have that extra yard of pace that we've been missing from the team. Absolutely blistered past the Hamilton player to get the goal for Wilson. And I think Wilson, I didn't mention the first game against him for him, but he's just the kind of player I absolutely love. He's not one you should look at the highlights of. He's someone you really need to see for the full 90 minutes because so much of his play is just managing to find the ball when it's bouncing about in the box. He seems to know exactly where it's going to land. He's just, the chemistry between him and Braga I thought was excellent. And it's really, I mean, Braga absolutely deserved to get a goal. It was a really lucky, but he was clearly delighted to get it and did the celebration as well, which, well, I think that's going to divide the fan base as well. But hey, we all enjoyed it and joined in at the time.
Just
You've got a player like him who's very intelligent as well. He knows what he's doing. You've got a player like Wilson, who, like you say, he got on the end of that rebound from Shankland, and he was there for Braga knew where he was going. He knew what Braga was going to do. That's the kind of link up that you love to see in your forwards. You know what I mean? They're communicating. They know where the other one's going to be. We've missed that for a long, long time. And I think that was really exciting. those goals were really exciting for me. And like you say, with the Wilson thing, not if you look at his highlights, maybe you're not that impressed. Where he was for Shankland's rebound to score, and where he was, him and Braga playing that, and him getting that goal, I thought it was incredibly impressive. That's what you need. That's intelligent footballers.
And yeah, and I didn't realize how good the Wilson goal was against Dunfermline until I watched the highlights again, because when it kind of rebounds back, it was never Wilson's ball to get. Like he's there with the defenders, none of them react, and he's
Yeah.
instantly moving into the exact position he needs to be in. So I think Wilson's always shown like a kind of real intelligence, and there's just a lot more to his game, like you said. Just he's got a bit of natural instinct to just get into the right position, and I think even the goal against Hamilton was a bit like that. I think he's got a lot of intelligence, and yeah.
So 2 wins out of 2 for Hearts, 4 goals in both games scored, and 1 goal conceded altogether. 8 goals scored, 1 conceded. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
I think it does. I'm optimistic. I'm looking forward to the season, man.
Yeah, and I know it's only the League Cup against lower league, but how many times have you seen Premier teams slip up in these matches? And it's not easy. It's not easy when you come in as manager and you've got all this pressure. You've got to go out and win. You've got to win. You've got to get convincing wins in these matches, and McInnes has done that. So I think there's a lot of credit to him and the players that they've. I mean, how many times have we scored 8 goals in 2 games like this? In
Yeah,
these League
exactly.
Cup?
We're still being slightly negative on the fact that we've scored 8
Yeah.
goals, conceded 1, and won twice. Like at the start of the season, that's not usual for us. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And different players have been scoring. There's just a lot of positives to take. Dunfermline looked like a decent side. Going away and winning 4-0 again against Hamilton is not something that we've done a lot either. So that there's real positives from the scorelines. Absolutely.
Okay, so transfers so far this window. We've obviously got the analytics in. A lot has been said about them. I won't delve too much into what the Jamestown analytics can give us. However, I do think so. There's been a lot said about, first of all, the 10 million investment, and also the fact we can sort of basically find lower league talent and talent from across different countries and other leagues, perhaps more efficiently with this transfer, with the Jamestown analytics in place. One thing I do think that's kind of been slightly lost in this, however, is our ability to know when best to sell a player. So, for example, Penrice, he wasn't actually picked out by Jamestown. He was one that Naismith liked to look off and basically pulled aside after a Livy game. However, the Jamestown analytics said, sell now. Basically, this is probably one of his best seasons he's going to have, so get rid of him now. 2 million for our player of a season. I know people say that's not great, but it might well be sell-on clauses. And quite honestly, we've been, we always like to claim we're the 3rd biggest team. I think Aberdeen and Hibs have been much better at selling players than we have over the years. So I think this is really going to be one of the huge strengths of Jamestown, other than aside from the players which we will talk about. But I think being able to sell players is going to be huge for us. What's your thoughts on that, Trunter?
I mean, we've got Harry Milne now, so any thoughts I had on Penrice going away, like kind of straight away, as soon as we got to know him, that's really been cushioned already. I don't know. You see what Jamestown have done. They've got a plan. We've never had a plan before, so I'm on board with that. I'm willing to put my kind of faith in the process at the moment and see how we get on. And yeah, if we can become more stable, if we can become a club that produces more talent, gets more money in, and yeah, I'm happy with it at the moment. Again, back to the optimism thing. It's funny. I thought I'd be more annoyed when Penrice went, and I'm not. I'm kind of I'm just we'll see what happens, man. I think it's good what's going on at the moment.
So an interesting thing came about during the 90 minutes with McInnes. Jim Jeffries actually asked McInnes, why did we look at Josh Mulligan, who I think is a great player, and he obviously went to Hibs. And McInnes said we were never in for him, and that he actually scored incredibly poorly on the analytics. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, great, he's going to be shite for them. The analytics doesn't necessarily mean a player is going to be bad or good. It basically hedges your bets to assume that they're likely to do really well for you and help sort of cut down. So, Josh Mulligan could have an excellent season with Hibs. Just the analytics are suggesting that he might not be either suitable for what we're after, or he's just not going to be able to cut it across the season. I thought that was quite an interesting point, and it's also worth noting that every player that we bring in has to be approved by Jamestown. Finlay apparently did, so he did come up okay on the analytics. There was ones rated higher than him, but McInnes basically, wanted to push this one through, and the Jamestown were happy for it because he did show up on it, albeit not as highly as some other ones. So far as it stands, it's just him and McEntee are the only two that McInnes himself has brought in. All the other signings we've had were brought in either by Critchley or perhaps sporting director under their guidance. Who have you been most impressed by, or who are you most excited by so far? I also want to include that we've got two almost over the line, Adam, if you don't mind bringing in those two into the conversation as well, because you're better pronouncing their names than me. Is there any you're particularly excited by or really looking forward to seeing?
Well, I'm certainly at the moment looking forward to seeing the Greek winger Karidis, if that's how you pronounce it, just because he's the only one we haven't seen, and it seems like he's just taking a little bit of time after an injury to get back to full fitness. I think McEntee sounds like someone who's going to do really well, and then you've got Braga, who's kind of the exciting one. Finlay, I think he'll be really reliable as well. I think Borch Gravink, I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. He's a bit more of an unknown quantity maybe than the others. And yeah, we've got Kabori and Karjata, two wingers that look like they're almost certainly going to sign, just taking a little bit of time to get it over the line. So you've got Kabori, who scored a lot of goals in Estonia, and you've got Karjata, who plays in the Italian third tier. So it's really exciting that we've got those two wingers, and then we've also got Karidis, who hasn't actually had any minutes yet. I think seeing how the wingers do is particularly exciting. And I think as well, my general feelings on the analytics is, it's proven that it works. This is a proven system that's going to work. And I think what's important is that doesn't mean every single signing is going to be incredible. And if one signing doesn't do well, that doesn't mean we scrap the whole system. I think we need to avoid knee-jerk reactions and kind of put faith in a system that has been tried and tested, and that I think in the long term will produce the benefits.
I think also one thing I really hope we're going to see from both Kabori and Karjata is more pace. I thought during the Dunfermline game we looked pretty laboured and without able to inject much in the way of pace. Braga, I do believe, will be able to add something there. It's something we've said for a while, and it's something McInnes has just pointed out right from the get-go. We need more pace, and we absolutely do. If we really want to, there's times you can break down teams, but one of the best ways, I certainly think, in the Scottish leagues is if you've got a player with pace, you're already got a pretty decent chance of managing to scrape something towards the end of a match. So yeah, I'm particularly excited by them. McEntee, as I said earlier, I think he's going to hit the ground running. I feel he already has hit the ground running. I do feel that Kabori could well be our best ever Birkenhead player. I know it's a big, tall order, but he's certainly in with the chance there. Trunter, any players you're particularly excited to see at all?
Well, Braga. I mean, I thought he was
Mm.
fantastic. That's just awesome. And like I say, there was just something about the way that that Finlay moved. Um, and I know he's not new, but like Kent, and there's something about Kent. I don't know. When we're talking about the analytics and stuff, and obviously it's all like data driven. And I was saying I was really excited about that because it's a bit more of a structure for us, particularly when it comes to kind of like making a bit of money on players and not getting sort of we tend to get a bit lost. Sometimes you got to worry about like the human element coming out of it a little bit. I mean, I'd love to see what an analytics thing made of Alex Ferguson's last couple of like title winning teams. I don't think they would have done particularly well. As players without the manager. So there's obviously there's a blend there, but like I say, yeah, I'm still trusting the guys they're bringing in. I like Borch too. I think Borch looks really really good.
And that leads me on to the Sterling game. We won't go into too much because by the time people listen to this, there's a good chance the game's already been. However, is there any particular players you're hoping to see or pairings that you might like to see? I think for me that I'd really like to see Shankland and Braga play together up front. I know Braga played with him, but not in his favoured position. Well, what I think will probably end up being his favoured position. I know he does say he actually likes playing the left wing, but to me, he just looked far more natural right up front and centre. I'd also like to see more of Wilson and Braga again. It's strange saying that and Shanklin not being the first name, but obviously different players can come at different points in the game. It'd be interesting to see if all three of them could potentially play together at some point as a front three. The other sort of position I think is quite an interesting one. I thought it was kind of a dead cert that Clark would be in goals whilst Gordon's not available, and then when Gordon comes recovers from his injury, that they'd be fighting out. Fulton, I thought, looked pretty solid. Every game I've seen him in, he's actually looked pretty solid. He seems comfortable with the ball at his feet, decent shot stopper. Been a couple of hairy moments, but he's hardly had any games really. So I maybe don't think it's the dead cert I thought it was that Clark starts in goals for the season ahead. We'll see how that plays out. Thoughts for the game then, Adam? Is there any players you're looking forward to seeing or partnerships you're looking forward to seeing for the Sterling game? I don't think we'll try and predict it given what McInnes has made change-wise.
I like your idea of seeing Braga starting again. Different partnerships for Braga. I still hope. I'm not sure how close he is to being ready, but Garidas again, just because he's the only new signing we haven't seen. But I'm kind of going into the game, to be honest. I'm going to be happy with whoever starts because I think we can be confident we're going to go out there and produce a very good performance. So I think we'll see a few changes again and maybe a different formation again from what we had against Hamilton. And honestly, I think I'd like to see Neuenhoff play again just to get another game under his belt, given the fact that he has had so many injuries and didn't really play much last season. Apart from that, yeah, I'm quite happy at the moment to see anyone play it because I think we've done really well so far, and I'm pretty confident we'll have a comfortable win against Sterling as well.
Neuenhoff is an interesting one. Again, a player I just thought would be out the window, but really I think every chance he's had under McInnes, he's taken. I think he looks really exciting. I hope he gets some more minutes as well, actually. It'd be great to see him play. Is there anything else anyone wants to add about the Sterling Albion game before we move on to our next and final subject?
I guess I've never been to Fourth Bank before, so really I think what's really good about the group stages, whilst we don't want to be in the group stages, it is really great getting to go to these lower league like away games. There's always a bit of a story when you go to an away game. So really looking forward to that one. It's also not that far away from Edinburgh either. We still don't know if Jamie's going to go yet. Needs to get permission. So, yeah, it could just be me and John at the game.
Yes, hopefully I'll be there. Hopefully with another win for the Jambos. So the final topic I want to talk about is part of the reason that I wanted to create the Hearts and Sleeves podcast. It's football related, but not quite. So it's about you people listening. I want for people to use this podcast if they want as a sort of open forum. So you can write in and tell us how you're feeling about Hearts, but I also want people to be able to use it if they ever want to talk about any mental health issues they're facing, or perhaps someone else they know is facing mental health issues. If it's connected to football, that's great. But if not, it doesn't matter because you're a football fan and you're listening to this podcast. The reason I wanted to bring this as part of the podcast is because I've, in fact, 100% of the presenters and contributors to this podcast that you're listening to right now have faced mental health difficulties in the past, and Hearts has been part of that journey in some shape or form for them. I think when I sort of grew up and I was really struggling with my mental health, I think it would have been incredibly helpful for me to hear just another fellow football fan talking about what they're going through. I felt particularly lonely. I felt embarrassed. I felt ashamed what I was going through. I don't feel anything like that anymore talking about my experiences. I'm hoping people can to feel able to write in and talk about. Of course, you can keep it anonymous if they like, about any mental health challenges they've faced and perhaps what's helped them, and has Hearts ever been part of that? For me, the sort of main issue I had was something called agoraphobia, where I basically struggled to leave the house for years on end. I drank a lot to try and get out the house, and this would even only just be going to the pub, really. And that was my life for quite some time. I really struggled to deal with it. Obviously it led to pretty depressing periods of my life, and I didn't know who to talk to, and I certainly felt too ashamed to talk about it to a doctor. But one day I finally did feel able to talk about it, and that was the day things started getting better for me, and I started being able to make it along to Tynecastle, which is a huge thing for me. And the biggest achievement I got was with Adam. This was last year when I managed to make it all the way to Bruges with him for an away day. Goodness knows how many hours we spent on trains for it, but that just felt not even in the realms of possibility at one point in my life. But now, through Hearts and through my recovery, I've been able to do this, and I'd really like for people to feel able to talk about these things. Trunter, do you want to sort of talk about anything about your experiences or anything like that?
Yeah, first up, my pride that you're able to make it to Bruges. I was amazed when you told me that you were going over there. But I mean, I was amazed, but I wasn't. You were so far along on your your journey. It just seemed like you're like, yeah, I'm off. I'm on a European away day. And I think about 20 years ago when you and I started hanging out, that I don't think either of us could have even fathomed that for either one of us. I'd been struggling with anxiety and depression and stuff. Met Jamie, started hanging out, and a huge part of that was Hearts as well. I'd stopped going to the football. A bit of agoraphobia and a bit of the anxiety of being feeling not part of like the football crowd, and then meeting a friend who kind of was into all the same kind of stuff as me and also a football fan was massive for me. I finally had someone I could go to Tynecastle with again, and I hadn't had that since I was a very sort of quite a young teenager. That was when I stopped going to the games. So sort of sporadically started going to games again, and that was just massive for me. So it's it's part of the reason that I wanted to be part of this podcast, was kind of the journey, almost our joint journey. You can see it through I was looking through old Facebook photos and stuff, and there's wee dribs and drabs of being at Hearts games, even when we went to see Hearts versus Barcelona in that friendly at Murrayfield. These are such like strong memories and such certain points in time that I can go back to and look at as a bit of progress, and kind of also how I made that progress. So yeah, it's that's kind of why I'm here, and it's lovely that football can be such a big part of this, this growth. So so thanks for having me on.
Yep, thanks a lot, Trunter. Thanks for your kind words as well. We've been really supportive through our footballing journeys, through the highs and lows, Hearts and our own personal life have brought. But yeah, it's, as you say, it's amazing how football and Hearts games can really present such huge milestones and fantastic memories for us. Adam, is there anything you want to bring into this conversation at all?
Yeah, well, I guess, when I was younger, when I was like at uni, I left uni for a couple of years before going back to complete my fourth year. And I think football is the sort of one constant you've always got. So since I was a kid, I've gone to like basically every home game and some away games. And, even in times when you're really struggling with mental health, you kind of know every couple of weeks you'll be back at Tynecastle. And like, my dad, my granddad, my great granddad, basically everyone in my family supported Hearts. So you kind of feel like you go in and you kind of belong there, no matter how other things are going in your life. And I lived in London for a few years. I came back 2 years ago. And I think being in London, that was the first time I was not going to every Hearts game, basically, every home game at least. And being in London, like if there was times when I was struggling, coming back to Edinburgh for like a few days and going to a Hearts match was just like massive. And I think having been away for 6 years in London, you know, the importance of Hearts to me feels even stronger now that I'm back going all the time. And, sometimes just knowing that you've got like a Hearts game at the weekend, it kind of, yeah, it makes the whole weekend feel a bit better. Win, lose or draw, it's just the fact that you're going to Tynecastle, you're a Hearts fan, you're kind of part of this huge group of people that supports the club. And I think on as well, I remember when I met Jamie at work, and then I remember like maybe like the second time or something I met up with him outside of work. We spoke about mental health, and yeah, Jamie's been really kind of inspirational in the way that he can post about it online, speak about it openly. And I think funny thing about it was that we started speaking at work because we were at a training session and Jamie had a Hearts water bottle. Without that, we might never have spoken. So even something like that, the football club kind of brought us together. And yeah, certainly the way Jamie's able to speak about it and even set up a podcast with that kind of purpose, I think has really inspired me in terms of being able to talk about things myself more openly.
Thanks very much for your contributions there, guys. And again, thanks for your kind words. I couldn't be more happy they're both part of this podcast. And I already look forward to talking about the game on Saturday with you both next week. If you want to join in any of these conversations that we've had, please do email us at heartsonsleevespodcast@outlook.com. That's heartsonsleevespodcast@outlook.com. It can be about Hearts, it can be about your mental well-being or anything in between. But other than that, thank you very much for joining us for our first episode. We'll hope to see you again next time.